Oh, we have a visitor.
Oh, look at that. Oh.
Puppy Jack.
What a snuggly puppy. Yeah, snuggly puppy.
No matter how hyper he is, if once you pick him up, he just calms right down. He'd fall asleep right here.
Hello, and welcome to the TwinCast pod. We are a podcast where we pick up an old video game, dust it off, turn it around in our hands, and try to ascertain if it holds up today. My name is Cam, and joining us for our discussion today is we have what I consider maybe my evil half of myself. I actually call him Wham.
Yeah, just turn Cam upside down, and that's me.
And then also joining us today is kind of the taller, more like handsome one. So maybe kind of like the Luigi of the group here is Trevor.
Oh my goodness, I'm honored. Luigi, wow.
Yeah,
what a heartthrob.
Yeah, this is actually our maiden voyage into one of the most popular franchises in all of video games. First time we're talking about Mario. Today we're actually going to be talking about Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins. But before we get into our main discussion here about talking about Super Mario Land 2, I just want to remind everyone that we are a podcast that's kind of like a book club style podcast where we choose a game every month. We play through it and we think about it. We discuss it among ourselves throughout the month. Try to get a good idea of how we feel about these games so we can talk about it with you guys. And we invite you guys too, wherever you are, to join with us, play these games, and so you can enjoy the discussion that we have next time. Next time we are talking about Castlevania Symphony of the Night on PlayStation. So
What a banger!
I'm excited about that. Yeah, I'm excited about that one.
I've heard a lot about it. Would you guys say that we've covered more pearls or more turds on this podcast so far?
I would say kind of what's a mixture of like a pearl that has a turd on it.
What happens if you just really polish the turd? Then it's okay, right?
There you go.
Polished, yeah.
A polished turd.
It's like Peter ate a pearl, and 2 days later, Clark finds this pearl in a Peter present.
Yeah. Peter's my dog, by the way, not one of my children. Just so everyone knows.
Well, you're not searching your children's poop for pearls.
Oh man!
All right, let's talk about Super Mario Land 2. The first thing I kind of wanted to mention now is where Super Mario Land 2 fits in like the chronology of the Mario games. Do you guys know where it fits in, Clark?
Yeah, generally. So, I mean, Mario goes back to Jumpman, right? Like, that was not really the first Mario game. It was a Donkey Kong game.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, like, mainline, like, Super Mario games.
So this comes after Super Mario World, which was a Super Nintendo game. So, I mean, the original Super Mario Brothers game came out in 1985. This came out in 1992, so 7 years after that game. And in between that, you had 3 Nintendo games and at least one Super Nintendo game in there, and then you had one
another Game Boy game.
Another Game Boy game, yeah.
Okay, well, so like you said, this came out in 1992. As far as I can tell, doing my little research that I did, is that it's one of the last 2D platformers before they jumped into the Mario 64. I think Mario 64 was after this one, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, there's Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
That was on the Super Nintendo? What year was that? I'm not sure if I count that, but that baby Mario...
They called it Super Mario World 2.
I guess so.
That was like 94. So that... I mean, and there's also the Donkey Kong games, which were 2D games on the Super Nintendo that weren't Mario games, but they were platformers.
I guess Mario is the villain in some of those Donkey Kong games, right?
The Donkey Kong Country games, no.
In like Donkey Kong 2 or Donkey Kong Jr. Is it Donkey Kong Jr.?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that was the first time that Mario showed up was in one of those Donkey Kong games, right?
The OG.
You were
Donkey
trying
Kong.
to climb up the thing.
Well, it was either that or Wrecking Crew. Which came first, Wrecking Crew or Donkey Kong? I can't remember.
And then they had Mario Bros, which was that just like where you have the the two Mario, I guess Mario and Luigi, where you run around trying to flip those crabs and stuff like that.
There was single screen. It wasn't like a scrolling screen.
Yeah, and it had the POW thing, and then you had Super Mario Brothers, and
yeah, this is like Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, we got to talk about all the branching timelines here.
yeah, and his twin brother. Oh my gosh! It really is.
Spoilers. Okay, this came out in 1992. It's developed and published by Nintendo, and it was on the Game Boy. It's a platformer, and it really came out to pretty good critical reviews. It's not like super gangbusters, but a lot of people rank it in the top 10 of the Game Boy games that came out. So the question I want to start with you guys is, where did you first come in contact with this game and play it, or really see it, or had any influence on this game? We'll start with you, Trev.
I definitely played this. I texted you guys as we started it, and I said that I have definitely played most, if not all, of this game before, which I am now not sure about, because it was definitely your guys' game, but you guys said that you only ever borrowed it. And I
think it's one of those cases where we borrowed it, but we kind of ended up like just having it in some sort of exchange long term.
I wound up having this game from the store. So I have, it might be a phantom memory at this point. I have a memory of being on a road trip and switching off back and forth between my older sister Kai and I playing this game. So I have like vivid memories playing this game. Whether or not they're phantom, I don't know. But as I booted it up, I was like, oh yeah, I've played through this entire game before. So it was cool. I think this is probably the oldest Mario game that I've played any significant amount of.
Awesome. All right, Clark, why don't you... We have a kind of a shared experience with this game, too, so I'm going to let Clark describe it for both of us.
In my research for this game, I pulled up an old ad for this game, and I recognized it. I remembered the ad. So that was probably my first experience with this game. It's like this animated Wario, like trying to hypnotize the player to join his side, and it's interesting, kind of a time relic. So anyone who's interested in that kind of thing, just go look up Super Mario Land 2 commercial, and it's really interesting. So that had to be one of my first times of being in contact with this game. Otherwise, I just remember our friend Gene having this game and seeing it at his house and just being kind of blown away, because I remember the original Super Mario Land, and while it was okay for a Game Boy game, I always, even back then where I didn't have as discerning of taste, I always knew it wasn't like a real Mario game. But when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's a real Mario game. And it's on the Game Boy, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of add a little bit to that from my experience. I remember playing the original Super Mario Land over at the Rogers house. One of the Roger boys had a Game Boy, and I remember playing it there and thinking that I'm like, this doesn't feel like Mario. The guy is like, that Mario's super teeny, and the sprites are all weird. It doesn't. And there's like
the physics were way off.
Yeah, it's strange.
Not that it was a bad game. It was just weird.
I mean, it was a Mario game on the Game Boy, and you knew that when you were playing on the Game Boy, you were going to make some sacrifices. There it is, right there.
Yep. Wow. Dusting that bad boy off.
Yeah, and then it was shortly after this time that we had gotten our own Game Boys, and at this time also, Clark and I used to share a room when we were younger. I actually took your mom, Trevor, moved out of the house, and I took her room downstairs, and so I had my own room. And I remember,
because you were the elder brother, huh?
Yeah. Well, actually, the way I remember it, Clark didn't, like, my mom came and said, "Okay, are you okay? Who wants this room?" And Clark didn't really want to go downstairs.
Yeah, I just wanted to stay. Yeah.
So Clark stayed upstairs, and I went down in the dungeon. But I remember the feeling of freedom I had I had a Game Boy. And I was down there in that room, and I remember playing this game downstairs on the Game Boy, and it felt like, it kind of was like, oh, I'm growing up, I have my own freedom now, I get to play a video game in my own room on this Game Boy. It was pretty awesome, and like Clark said, like, it felt like a Mario game. It didn't feel like the other one, where it didn't quite feel like Mario. Any other early experiences you guys had with the game?
No, just road trips, plugging in those AA's when they die.
Yeah.
So hoping that you saved before they die.
They didn't die as fast as the Game Gear AA's.
And the Game Gear took 6 of them.
Was that that's the Sega one, right?
Yeah.
I remember playing that once. I don't remember what game it was, but I remember one of you brought it out for me to just try. And I remember we spent the majority of the time looking for six double A's throughout the house.
Well, Clark actually still has our Game Gears. Not to get off too far of a tangent here, but I kind of want to fix them up when I get the chance. So,
that'd be sweet.
Put a battery mod in there so it's not sucking.
Battery mod, yeah. Battery mod. Let's go ahead and move on and talk about a little bit more about the gameplay here. Trevor, starting with you, how would you describe the gameplay and the feel of this game as you play it?
I mean, it's a platformer. As I've played this, I played Super Mario 64, so my Mario bench isn't very deep as far as like the games that I've played. But platformer, you're dodging guys, you're dodging cannons, you're dodging bad guys. For the most part, you jump on top of them to kill them. And then you have some power-ups that you get. You got your fireball power-up. You've got your glide power-up. I think they're supposed to be rabbit
bunny
ears.
bunny ears.
Yeah, bunny ears. Yeah, because bunnies fly. So some combination of all of those elements makes up every single stage of Mario, which I thought was going to get old really quickly. But I was surprised at how fresh this game felt all the way through. Like, I don't know if it was just because the maps mixed up. You know, like how the maps felt every single time, or if there was enough differences between all the enemies that I was very surprised that it didn't start to feel stale throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, it's not really super deep in the power-up department, but each zone ends up being uniquely themed, and there's different enemies in each of the zones. So yeah, I agree. The thing that really stands out to me, I mean, I agree with everything Trevor says there. It's just standard platforming game, and what really drew me to this game as a kid was the overworld map. You gotta remember, this came out after Super Mario Bros. 3 and after Super Mario World, which had really cool overworld maps, and I loved it, just the concept of those overworld maps where you can kind of just explore, kind of choose your own path on this one. And this is the same, and I remember like being blown away that this was on a Game Boy where you had 6 distinctive zones, and it was kind of, I mean, very rudimentary, sort of open world where you can kind of just choose any zone that you wanted to go to that zone, and each zone was full of ton of personality, right? Like, when you go into the Mario robot zone, the whole zone is like really well animated, and all of the characters in there look as appropriate to a robot zone. That's what really set it apart from other Game Boy games, which were, somewhat shallow, and you can tell they didn't put a lot of enemy diversity in the game, a lot of effort into building out a world. Like this one, there's a lot of care in that.
I would just like to comment a little bit more. I agree with everything you guys say. The one thing that's a little bit strange to me after playing some like other mainline Mario games recently, say more like Super Mario 3 and Super Mario 2, is that the jumping feels a little strange on this one, a little floaty, and it's a little hard to get to move between the Mario games. It's not a big qualm. Once you get used to it, it's not too bad. But it just feels a little bit different. The physics feel a little bit different than other Mario games.
And a lot of that is just the fact that it's on the Game Boy, right?
Yeah. They made some sacrifices because they made Mario bigger and he looks more like Mario and stuff like that. But then because he's so big, they can't fit as much stuff on the screen because the screen's so tiny that you have to like move around, and sometimes you would have to make a leap of faith and then get killed by something because you didn't see something that was just right off the screen. Just little things like that. But ultimately, I thought they did an awesome job of capturing the feel of Mario, and it's actually very unique. There's a lot of different enemies and stuff in here too. A lot of stuff that I really loved.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it did feel a little floaty. It kind of becomes like a part of the gameplay at some point. You're just like, oh, it's just like
you get
floaty.
used to
That's
it.
How this game wants to.
And one of the things that with you guys talking about floaty and stuff is I just noticed, and I messed around with kind of a drag and drop Game Boy creator thing, and I could kind of see some of the limitations in this game after I've been tinkering around a little bit with the development on that, like just like the tactile feel of the enemies you'll get hit, but then it won't slow your sprite down. You'll just kind of keep going through the enemies. Like it doesn't have as much of the tactile feel as like some of the more like bigger brother console versions of Mario. And all of that, like the little bit slower physics and floaty physics, I think is all just dependent because it's on a slower, smaller machine.
All right. Well, that's a good description of the gameplay overview. I think we'll take a little bit of break here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about the story. Welcome back. We just finished our break here. We needed to mentally prepare ourselves now to try to untangle the web of this story
and ask how ask how such an abomination as a moofish can exist.
Yes. That's all in the lore, Clark. In fact, I'm going to throw it over to you to try to help explain to me what's going on with the story in this game.
Well, see, while Mario was away in Mario Land 1, one of Mario's good friends growing up grew jealous. His name was Wario, and wanted to basically rule over Mario's kingdom. So he took over Mario's kingdom and brainwashed all of the leaders of the different zones in Mario's kingdom and took over his castle. Because apparently Mario has a castle and it's never been seen since. But he has a castle in here. Oh, and in Mario Land, Mario constructed a living robot that looks like himself, too.
That's right.
It's very important to the lore of the story. So
his ear twists and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's strange.
And Wario locks his castle and you need 6 golden coins to get into his castle. So the 6 zones of Mario Land all have a golden coin. You go get those golden coins and you go take out this is Wario's first appearance ever. So you go take out the bad guy that would have a long career after this too.
Yeah. I want to point out that in Wario's first game by himself, someone, like he's sleeping or something, and someone comes steals his castle. So, anyways, yeah. This is the first game with Wario in it, and you said he was like a playmate of Mario when he was young?
I looked it up in
Is this in Italy? Is this in Italy? I don't get it.
The Bronx. It's totally an island by the Bronx, or I don't know.
That's
it's Mario Land. Like there was no other place like it.
Maybe they started competitive plumbing businesses. Where did that come from? At what point did we know that Mario's a plumber? Is that
in the original Mario Brothers game, not the Super Mario Brothers game, they're like in a place where there's a bunch of pipes and turtles and stuff, and like things are coming out of the pipes, and so they probably just used the pipes and stuff, and like the things coming out of the pipes, and they just probably said that they're plumbers, and that was like the lore at that time.
So at no point like has him being a plumber played an integral part of any of these games. Man, that's deep. That's deep though. Like it runs deep in society.
It goes to show though that even if you're a plumber, you can go down a pipe and gain control of someone else's kingdom and become supreme ruler and name it after yourself. And you're the Mario.
Yeah, so for all you aspiring plumbers out there, take heed.
Yeah.
And then you can build in your own simulacrum of yourself. That's the big statue of it's a whole zone to itself.
And I will just princess. Like if we hasn't been made clear at this point when we talk about some of these older games, is the story was always secondary. And in fact, like there's no story hardly. I don't think any story really imparted in the actual game itself. Like you just start playing, and then you're like, okay, you're on this world. And then you get a coin, and then it goes to the castle, and you can see the castle. You can go to the castle from the beginning, but you can't go in because the door's locked. And then when you beat a boss, the coin goes in, and so you kind of piece together some of the story if you didn't know as you're playing it. The only way that you really got the story back then was the instruction manual. So that's why I went and looked at the instruction manual to read what the deep lore was behind this game, because that's just what you had to do back then.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered everything on as far as the story goes. So
we're not gonna talk about the cloning program that Wario came from out of Big Mario in the 1940s, who started a special operations unit.
Yeah, I think you're trying to compare this to Metal Gear Solid, aren't you, Trev?
No. This came first.
I really want to know the lore behind the three pigs.
I was actually looking at that. They're named Burrow, Butcho, and Bupon. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Maybe we should talk about some of these bosses and some of the Mario characters that are unique to this game. So, I mean, you had the three pigs. So, there's that. Let's see. There's Big Bird, but not the Big Bird that you're thinking of.
Not the Big Bird. It's just a Big Bird.
It's just a big bird.
There copyright infringement here.
So I'm looking here, and there's the alien guy, and his name is Tanaga. Katanga. And the little blurb here, it says he's a space alien from Mario's past. So
Ooh, coming back to haunt him from his past. Huh?
See.
I mean, this is like Interstellar, right? From the he's pushing over books in the bookcase.
Yeah, he's solved gravity and the gravity equation.
But this isn't the real Tatanga. This is a body double Tatanga, who real Tatanga.
But
comes
Mario doesn't
back.
know that.
Mario doesn't know that. We don't know that.
I think Trevor needs to start writing this fanfic.
Yeah.
And then you could also have the boss that's just called Witch. Just called Witch. We don't know anything about her backstory.
Witch.
So.
Well, you skipped Sewer Rat.
Oh yeah, well you can't forget about Sewer Rat, and he's just a sewer rat. And he's a pretty funny boss too, because he's got this really pointy nose, and he goes in and throughout the pipes and stuff like that. he's silly. And then there's an octopus who spits little octopuses at you.
Octopi.
That's right. Yeah.
No, let's see, Trevor, you're the grammar person here, isn't it? It's not Latin. It's Greek, so it would be octopoda.
Whoa, this has exceeded my abilities.
Let's see. I think that's all of them, right?
I will say that outside of Wario, like, all of these boss battles are really underwhelming. Did you guys find that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just because I have good memories about Three Little Pigs that, like, as a child I was ecstatic that I was able to beat them. I remember enjoying that one then, and this time around I did get a warm and fuzzy. But all the other ones I just didn't. It's kind of throwaway. You hit them 3 times on the head and they're gone. They're not ever super hard. Cheap. They're maybe sometimes kind of cheap, but they're not very hard.
Yeah, I mean, this is. It was probably harder when we were kids. I don't remember. I just remember playing it now, and I couldn't believe how easy it was. And so maybe it was just geared towards kids or whatever. But yeah, it was super easy.
For the most part, this game is a super breezy game. It's nice and easy. There are cool secret areas and zones. In fact, there's a secret level in every single zone, if you can find it. And there's secret places in all the levels, and it's fun to kind of explore them. But it's all pretty easy. So,
did you guys have a favorite zone?
I was about to say my favorite zone, I think, was the underwater zone. It's cool. It's just different. You're underwater, so the physics, once again, are even different from the rest of the game, where you're swimming around and you kind of have to factor that in. And I remember as a child finding the secret level, and I kind of remembered where it was when I played through it this time. So I think it was just another one of those, like, nostalgia holds a special place in my heart kind of thing.
I liked the macro zone. I always like it when you play these games and you get the items that are supposed to be small but then are big, and then you're hopping up on them and stuff like that.
We must be twins, because that was my favorite zone too.
It kind of reminded me of, like, Chippendale's Rescue Rangers.
Or World 6 in Mario 3, whichever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorite worlds too in Mario 3 too, where everything's big. So and in that zone in this game too, it's in like a little house, and if you get the secret area in the first area, instead of going through like the main level of the house, you can go up to the attic, and you go up to the attic of the house and you go through to. I thought it was a pretty cool touch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was another one that I found.
So all that's pretty easy, except when you get to the your I guess it's your castle that Wario is trying to squat on. When you get there, it gets a little bit harder. It's the platforming is way more particular in Wario's castle.
It's actually kind of stark. If you're not really anticipating it, you're like, okay, well, maybe it'll be a little dialed up on difficulty here, but it's like 3 or 4 levels harder than anything else in the whole game. So
there was one point where if I didn't have save states and if I had to like restart every single time that I died, I cheated. So I used save states, and that made this game even easier than it already was, right? But like that part like was so hard that like if I didn't have save states, I would have been so frustrated having to restart every single time, because there was one part in particular in the castle that was just, you had to be spot on. It was when like the fists would like pound down. You know what I'm talking about? They would pound down.
There's
from
like
the ceiling.
pressure plates there. You can jump.
You can jump
over the pressure because they're traps. If you jump over the pressure plate, then the fist doesn't come down.
This whole time, man.
Yeah.
That's why you follow a guide for any game, even including this one.
You're just a glutton for getting fisted, Trev. One thing I have to say is that this was really hard. And I didn't use save states.
I probably died like 15 to 20 times trying.
Yeah, I was playing on my analog pocket.
It doesn't matter how far you get to. You always have to start at the first of that level, and it's a long level.
Yeah. I just remembered I took my 999 coins to the casino right before I went there, and I got like 30 up or something like that. I had like 60 lives or something like that. So I had plenty of lives to work with. So I eventually got through it, and then when you fight Wario, it's a pretty cool boss fight. There's 3 stages to it. You get to do the first one where he's just the normal Wario, but then he gets the power ups. He gets the bunny ears, and then also the flower power too. So
yeah.
And then once you beat him with the flower power, he becomes a little baby Wario.
He looks like a gremlin or something when he's baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of gross.
Yeah, he does look like a goblin.
So yeah, that's basically the game. Anything else you want to talk about as far as like story or gameplay?
Can I just say how like annoyed I was by the music? Is it okay if we talk about that?
Yeah, you talk about the music. It's probably the worst part of the whole game.
One song in the whole game, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least they mix it up. You got to give them some props that like there's the one song in the game, and they get seared into your mind, and you start hearing it in your dreams. But at least it's different in between zones. So like when you go to the pumpkin zone, it's a little bit more spooky or whatever, and you go to like the turtle zone, the water zone, then it's a little bit more like light and like you're in the water or whatever, but it's still just the one song. And
yeah. You have a boss song, and that's about it.
Well, yeah, most of the boss songs are just also just like a sped up version of that song. I think Wario boss fight might have a different song for his boss fight. I could be wrong, but
I just know when I was playing this yesterday, my youngest daughter came in and said, "What is with this music?" She's actually noticed, and I said, "Well, this is a Game Boy game. It didn't have a lot of space for that kind of stuff back then, so you gotta be a little lax on it."
You have 3 channels for music. I've actually dabbled a tiny bit in Game Boy music creation, and they're mod files, and you get 3 different sound channels and then 1 noise channel. That's all that you have, and when you're making the music, and it's hard to make something sound good. But I mean, they do a good job with the song. I just wish there was more variety.
So with those 3 channels, you can't, like, it has to go throughout the entire game, or can it like change? It can't change from like level to level. It can't trigger like a different file that will load into the
No,
three
you
channels.
can have different songs and things in there. I'm just saying that each song only has three channels,
Yeah.
and then one noise channel. Yeah, you could definitely switch songs and themes, but the fact of the matter is that this is a dedicated sound chip that can only make a certain ranges of sounds on there. Like there wasn't any sampled music for sure on there. It was all coming out of this dedicated sound chip with those three channels. And I think they do an okay job making the song sound okay on the Game Boy. It's just more variety would have been nice.
Yeah, so nothing special out of the music here. A lot of the times we'll try to add some music from the games that we play here, but we'll just go ahead and save you.
Why don't we just like put the song on loop this whole podcast?
Well, then they can get the... Yeah, that'll be just like playing the game, right?
Yeah.
Maybe in lieu of that, I'll just read Clark's note here. Basically, one track the whole game. OMG, get it out of my head.
To wrap up our discussion here, I did want to talk about some of the ways that we played the game, the way that you can play the game today that might make life a little bit better for you as you play this game. Clark turned me on to the DX hack of this game, a ROM hack of this game that is really awesome. Why don't you go ahead and talk a little about that, Clark?
Yeah, I mean, ROM hacking is simple, especially for the Game Boy and some of these older systems, but it's not hard to do a quick Google search for romhacking.net, and there's someone that has done a full color conversion of the game, and it looks awesome. And in addition to that, they added Luigi. So the original game didn't have Luigi, so you can play as Luigi in the deluxe version, and you got all these crisp colors. And I don't know if you can see behind Cameron right now, T, but that's what the color version looks like.
That's what I was gonna ask. I didn't know where. I was wondering where you got that.
Well, you should. I think we gave you that, so it's probably in your ROM set somewhere. If you wanted to try it out, but it looks great, and like I played it on my Analog Pocket, and the Analog Pocket has a nice, really sharp screen, and it looks amazing on that. It's really a far cry from playing it on an OG Game Boy with no backlight and all the three shades of green that you have.
Yeah,
that's what I because you can cycle through. So I played it on the Miu Mini, and you can cycle through like the color settings, and I played it on the OG, like 3 shades of green just for old time's sake, and I was like, I cannot stomach this anymore.
Yeah, that's how we originally played it. The DX version is definitely the best way to play it these days. So, I also used my Analog Pocket, but obviously that ROM will work on any emulator that you're going to be playing it on. So I would definitely recommend doing the DX version. So, all right. Anything else you guys want to add, or should we tie a bow onto this and give us our rankings of the game here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. For those who don't know, we end the podcast by we each give our definitive ranking of the game and how we feel about it. And our rankings are the final word. You can't argue with how we rank these because we are the authority because we just played it. Can we
have T also rank the Mario Boys to see?
Oh,
I think that would be nice to have T rank Mario Boys.
So the Mario Boys.
Yeah, so you got Mario, you got Luigi, and Wario, and even Waluigi.
Waluigi, yeah.
Yeah, Waluigi. So rank those boys.
So your S tier is obviously going to be Waluigi.
Whoa.
That's if Luigi's
Agreed.
The hot one.
Yes.
Waluigi's the bad boy of the hot ones, right? Waluigi's S tier. Close second A tier is gonna be Mario, just for staying power alone. He's got some Riz that he's working with here, and then D tier is gonna be Luigi and Wario. So
they're tied. They're on the same tier.
All the way at the
consider
bottom,
that Luigi does strike the fear in the hearts of CEOs all over the world.
Yeah, health companies, CEOs.
This Super Mario Land 2 episode is one for the books.
All right, well, we basically have a 1 through 6 ranking. 6 would be like the high. If you give something at 6 points, it'd be the highest. It would be one of the best games, even if it were released today. All the way down to a 1, where it's not only it's not good today, and it wasn't even good then. So we're gonna 1 through 6. We're gonna go ahead and rank these. We'll start with Clark. What's your ranking?
So, I mean, just to give my explanation of the ranking, I think that this game is a good Game Boy game, and it would be in the highest Game Boy game. But looking back now, you can't like go back because that's just the fact that it's portable is not enough today, right? Like everything is portable, and so that gimmick doesn't really hold weight, and it can't carry it today, unfortunately. So while I loved this game back in the day for bringing Mario, a lot of the innovations of Mario to my road trips up to Bear Lake or whatever, like I can't give it that benefit of the doubt. I did have fun playing it. I chalk most of that up to nostalgia. And if I'm just thinking about generally, I think most people, if they're visiting this game, it's probably just for research, historical purposes. That's not to say that it's not totally without merit. I still think it's fun in some respects, but it's just not going to hold up to really anything today. So I'm going to give it a 3, which is in the middle. It's fun to play for 10 minutes, and you kind of see what it was, and then you move on. That's what I'm going to rank it.
All right, T. What's your verdict here?
I gave it a 2.5 for a lot of the same reasons. I don't see a lot of reason for most people to go back and play this game. Unless you're a Mario nut, you're not going to go back and play this game. And even if you do like Mario games, it doesn't even mean that you're going to like this game, just because there are so many different Mario games. They look so different these days. Like, you might have grown up with a very different Mario than the kind of game that this game is. So I go 2.5 for that reason. I don't see a lot of people going back to play this. It's still a playable platformer, just not a lot of incentive for people to go back and do it.
What if someone is a Moofish nut? Then would you recommend this game to them?
Oh man, a Moofish nut? That would be an absolute no from me, because they would see Moofish getting slaughtered in this game.
Okay.
That'd be too sad for them.
Man, a Moofish nut, that sounds like something you'd put, like you'd shave on top of a salad, like a nut that you would give it just like an earthy flavor.
Yeah, I don't know if we actually talked about it to the audience yet, but like I sent the picture of the Moofish to Cam and Trevor, and like that was like the first thing that I noticed when I was playing this game. Is I went in there and there was this Moofish, and like, what abomination is this? It's like it's like, this is an abomination before God. Like, we shouldn't see this. Like, it was creepier than even like the Jason apples that you see earlier in the game.
This game got everybody. This game is so much darker than you would think it is the way we talk about it. You go back and listen to this podcast, all the adult themes that we've covered so far, topping it off with Moofish nuts. Like, you do not. This game is rated M for mature.
I'm going to just go ahead and say I don't want to repeat everything that you guys have said. So I agree with everything you guys said. Nostalgia holds this game up for me. The DX version kind of boosted it up for me a little bit. And playing it on my Analog Pocket, I get that sweet nostalgia feel playing this. But even then, I understand the limitations of this game. I gave it a 3.1 just to better my brother.
Price is right, me?
Yes, Price is right, you. So yeah, that's our discussion on this game. I would recommend at least trying it out and seeing. You can see the origin story of Wario. You can see how they pushed along the portability of Mario, even though it was on a very limited system. You can definitely see the DNA of Super Mario World in this game, like when you do a jump spin. There's lots of interesting things about this game.
Yeah, and you get to explore the pants of a robot.
Yeah, what a wild ride.
And in the DX version, you can be Luigi exploring the pants of a robot. All right. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments or something, please reach out to us. Leave a comment on the video. You can reach us at the email that we have posted here. We would love to interact with you guys too. So thanks for joining us today.
If you're my mom, I'm not responsible for the adult themes.
All right. See you guys.
I did not expect Super Mario Land 2 to be our mature episode.
Okay. Well, I might have to cut that joke out. We're a family podcast here.